All right, let's talk about something you've definitely thought about. How in the world are people affording these brand new cars and trucks with payments that look more like a mortgage? Well, the answer is way more complicated and honestly way more interesting than you'd think. Let's get into it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're just driving along and this massive, shiny, brand new pickup truck pulls up next to you. You know, the kind that costs more than a starter home. And you just can't help but think, what's the secret here? Is everyone just secretly a millionaire? Well, it turns out the real answer is a lot more concerning.
So let's start by just unpacking the raw numbers. Because honestly, the figures behind what it costs to own a new vehicle in America right now are, well, they're pretty staggering.
Okay, so for starters, the average monthly payment for a new car just recently climbed past $729. And just let that sink in for a second. That's not for some high-end luxury car. That is the new normal for an average buyer. But you know what? That's really just the beginning. Because for new trucks and SUVs, which, let's be honest, completely dominate the roads these days, the typical monthly payment just blows right past $900. And then you get to the high end, which is becoming disturbingly common. We're seeing payments of $1,200 a month. That is almost $15,000 a year just for the payment. So the question is, how on earth is this even possible? Well, the answer lies in a couple of financial tricks, these little maneuvers that make impossible-sounding payments seem, possible, at least on paper. Dealerships have gotten really, really good at a certain kind of financial magic. So it really boils down to three main tactics. First, they stretch out loans for way, way longer than they used to. Second, they use that tempting lure of 0% financing, which often just hides the cost somewhere else. And third, there's this really sneaky process where they roll your old car debt right into your new loan. Let's break down how this all works. Okay, so the first trick is just extending the loan term. With a traditional 4-year loan, yeah, your monthly payment is higher, but you pay way less in total interest over time. But dealerships love to push these 8-year loans. Why? Because they can show you a much lower, much more manageable monthly payment. What they don't exactly shout from the rooftops is the mountain of extra interest you're going to pay over those extra 4 years. And we can actually put a number to that. Just by stretching that loan from 4 years to 8, a buyer can easily end up paying an extra $14,000 or more. That's 14 grand for literally nothing, except for the illusion of affordability. And this leads to this really dangerous cycle. It's called negative equity. That's when you owe more on your car than the car is actually worth. So when it's time to trade it in, that leftover debt you still owe, it just gets rolled right into your next loan. It is the perfect financial hamster wheel. You're always running, always paying for a car you don't even own anymore. But look, this isn't just a math problem. There is a very powerful psychological game being played here, one that convinces people to sign on the dotted line even when the numbers just don't add up. Car companies today, they're not just selling you a machine that gets you from point A to point B. Oh no, they're selling an identity. They're selling this idea of success, of ruggedness, of freedom. And when that purchase gets all tied up in your own self-worth, suddenly a $1,000 payment can start to feel like an investment in yourself. This deep emotional connection, it can lead to something that's been called automotive Stockholm syndrome. It's where the owner becomes this fierce defender of their financial captor, the car. They'll justify the expense with so much passion because if you think about it, questioning the payment starts to feel like admitting a personal failure. So, to actually make these massive payments month after month, people are often forced to perform some pretty extreme financial gymnastics behind the scenes. And we're not talking about small adjustments here. No. We're talking about people taking on second jobs just to pay for the truck they need to get to that second job. We're talking about raiding their 401ks, putting gas and repairs on high-interest credit cards, even taking out loans against their own homes, all of it in service of the car payment. And this phrase really just captures the pure absurdity of the whole situation. The very vehicle that's supposed to represent freedom becomes your master. It dictates your entire financial life, your work schedule, everything. It's like a modern form of servitude, just, with heated seats. So now let's pull all this together. What is the actual all-in true cost of one of these trucks over the life of the loan? The final number? It's almost unbelievable. Let's start with a pretty typical sticker price for a new, well-equipped truck, $55,000. That's the big number you see on the window sticker, right? The one the whole negotiation starts from. But trust me, that is just the starting point. Now, let's factor in a 7-year loan with an average interest rate. The total amount you've paid just for the vehicle itself suddenly climbs to $67,000. That's an extra $12,000 that went straight to the bank. But we're still not done. Okay, here's the final number. When you add in the realistic costs of insurance, fuel, and maintenance over those 7 years, the grand total you have actually spent on this truck is over $132,000. And this isn't just a big expense. Financial experts have a term for this: wealth destruction. It is literally the act of converting a giant pile of your money into an asset that, at the end of it all, is worth almost nothing in comparison. And just look at what that means visually. On one side, you have this huge mountain of cash you've poured into the vehicle, and on the other side, you have the tiny little value it actually holds after 7 years. You've essentially taken $132,000 of your hard-earned money and turned it into a $15,000 asset. And what's the real tragedy in all of this? It's the opportunity cost. If that same monthly payment had just been invested, say, in a simple index fund, it could have grown into over $70,000 of actual wealth instead of just being vaporized.
So it really leaves us with a pretty critical question to ask ourselves. We all need transportation, of course, but at what point does that need turn into a dangerous financial trap? Is your vehicle a tool that actually serves you, or has it become a financial anchor just weighing you down?